Never call the cops on someone just for existing while black. Susan Mitchell thought she was protecting her neighborhood when she dialed 911. But that night, every carved pumpkin on her street woke up, and they wanted justice. October 30th, 2024, Maple Grove, Connecticut. The kind of neighborhood where people compete over who has the best Halloween display, where Ring doorbells capture everything, where one phone call can end a life. This is the story of what happens when supernatural forces decide that some crimes deserve immediate consequences. When jack-o'-lanterns stop being decorations and become judges. When a woman's fear and racism collide with something ancient that refuses to let injustice slide. Marcus Chen bought his house in March, saved for 12 years, software engineer, Stanford graduate, single dad to a 10-year-old daughter named Maya. He was 36 years old, and this was supposed to be his American dream, a real house with a yard in a good school district. He was also black, and in Maple Grove, that made some people nervous. Marcus loved Halloween, always had. When Maya was little, he'd go all out with decorations, even in their tiny apartment. Now, with an actual house and a yard, he was finally doing it right. He took the week before Halloween off work, spent 3 days planning his display, ordered custom animatronics, built a haunted pathway, created a whole graveyard scene with fog machines and sound effects. October 30th, 2 p.m. Marcus was on a ladder outside his house, installing the final piece, a 12-foot-tall skeleton that would hang from his roof, positioned to look like it was climbing down. He wore old jeans and a hoodie, had his toolbox on the ground. His truck is in the driveway with the license plate clearly visible. Susan Mitchell lived 4 houses down, 53 years old, divorced, worked in real estate. She was walking her dog when she saw Marcus on the ladder. She stopped, stared, pulled out her phone. She didn't recognize him, didn't know he lived there. Saw a black man on a ladder doing something to a house, and her brain immediately jumped to crime. She called 911. "I want to report a break-in in progress. There's a man vandalizing a house on Maple Grove Drive. He's on a ladder, looks suspicious. You need to send someone now." The dispatcher asked for details. What is he doing that appears to be vandalism? He's putting things on the house. Drilling holes. He has tools. I don't recognize him. He doesn't belong here. "Ma'am, is it possible he lives there or was hired to do work?" Susan's voice got sharper, insisted. "I know everyone on this street. I've never seen him before. He's acting suspiciously. Just send someone." She didn't mention Marcus was black, didn't have to. Her tone said everything. Marcus was up on the ladder, focused on securing the skeleton's arm, when he heard the sirens. 3 police cars for one man on a ladder outside his own house at 2 in the afternoon. The officers got out, hands near their weapons. "Sir, step down from the ladder slowly. Keep your hands visible." Marcus's stomach dropped. He knew exactly what this was. He'd been black in America for 36 years. He knew the statistics, knew the videos, knew how fast this could go wrong. "This is my house," he said calmly, hands raised. "I live here. I'm decorating for Halloween. Step down from the ladder, now." Marcus descended slowly, every movement deliberate, non-threatening, his heart pounding so hard he could hear in his ears. "My ID is in my back pocket. The deed to this house is inside. I can show you." "Keep your hands where we can see them." Neighbors started coming out, watching, recording on phones. Susan Mitchell stood at the end of the driveway, arms crossed, watching with satisfaction, like she'd caught a criminal. It took 20 minutes. Marcus's hands were cuffed behind his back while they verified his identity, ran his license, called the bank to confirm ownership. 20 minutes of humiliation while his neighbors watched a black man treated like a criminal for decorating his own home. When they finally removed the cuffs, one officer said, "Sorry for the inconvenience, just responding to a call." No apology to Marcus, just an inconvenience, like this was a minor mix-up instead of a violation, instead of trauma, instead of something that could have ended with him dead in his own driveway. Marcus saw Susan, made eye contact. She looked away quickly, uncomfortable but not apologetic. She walked away with her dog as if nothing had happened. That night, Marcus couldn't sleep, kept replaying it. The sirens, the guns, the cuffs, how close he'd come. One wrong move, one officer with an itchy trigger finger, one moment of panic and Maya would have lost her only parent over a Halloween decoration. He went downstairs at midnight, stood in his living room looking out at his half-finished Halloween display. The 12-foot skeleton hung crooked. He'd never finished installing it, couldn't make himself go back outside after the police left. That's when he noticed the jack-o'-lanterns. He'd carved 6 pumpkins the day before, set them along his walkway. Traditional jack-o'-lantern faces, triangle eyes, jagged mouths. But now, in the moonlight, they looked different. The faces seemed to have changed. The expressions looked angry. Marcus rubbed his eyes. Exhaustion is playing tricks. But when he looked again, he was certain. The pumpkins' faces had shifted. The triangular eyes are narrower. The mouths turned down instead of up. They looked furious. Then, one of them blinked. Marcus jumped back from the window. The leftmost pumpkin's eyes had definitely moved and closed and opened. Flames inside flickered like pupils contracting. He watched, frozen, as all 6 pumpkins started to glow brighter. The candles inside them are burning higher, hotter. The orange light spilling onto his walkway turned red. Then the pumpkins started to move, rocking slightly, then lifting off the ground. They rose into the air, hovered 3 feet up, and then they turned. All 6 carved faces are rotating to look directly at Susan Mitchell's house, 4 doors down. The pumpkins floated down the street. Marcus, despite every rational thought screaming at him to stay inside, grabbed his jacket and followed. Every house on Maple Grove had jack-o'-lanterns, dozens of them, and as the 6 from Marcus's house floated past, the others woke up too, lifting from porches, rising from the steps, detaching from displays. Within minutes, over 40 carved pumpkins were floating through the air in a procession towards Susan Mitchell's house. They arranged themselves in a circle around her front yard, a jury box made of hovering jack-o'-lanterns, their carved faces all pointed at her front door. The flames inside them burned with unnatural brightness, red and orange and something that looked like green fire. Marcus stood at the edge of her property. Other neighbors emerged from their houses, drawn by the impossible sight. Everyone silent, watching. Susan's porch light came on. She opened her door, saw the floating pumpkins. What the hell? The largest jack-o'-lantern floated forward. Its mouth moved, flames inside shaping themselves into words that came out as a voice like crackling fire. Susan Mitchell, you have been summoned to answer for your crime. Susan stumbled backward. This is insane. I'm calling the police. You already called them, the pumpkin said, on an innocent man for the crime of existing in his own home while black. We are here to deliver justice. The other pumpkins began to speak in unison, a chorus of flame voices. You will experience what you nearly caused. You will feel what Marcus Chen could have felt. You will know the terror you inflicted. Susan tried to run back inside. The door slammed shut on its own, locked. Her windows sealed. She was trapped outside with the jury of jack-o'-lanterns. The pumpkin's flames surged. The largest one's eyes glowed white-hot. Your trial begins. The air around Susan shimmered, reality bent, and suddenly she wasn't standing in her yard anymore. She was on a ladder, outside a house, decorating. It was daytime. She could feel the sun, feel the weight of the drill in her hand. But her skin was darker. Her hands weren't her hands. She was seeing through Marcus's eyes, living his memory. She heard the sirens, felt the spike of fear, the confusion. She descended the ladder with hands that weren't hers and felt the terror of not knowing if she'd survive the next 10 minutes. The police approached, aggressive, suspicious. She felt Marcus's forced calm, the deliberate slowness of every movement because one wrong gesture could be fatal. The humiliation of the handcuffs, the crushing awareness that her neighbors were watching her be treated like a criminal. Susan tried to scream, but she was locked in the memory, forced to experience every second, every emotion. The shame, the rage, the helpless terror of being black in America and having the police called on you for nothing. Then the memory shifted. The scene changed. Now she experienced what could have happened, what happens too often. She reached for her ID, but in this version, an officer mistook the movement, shouted, drew his weapon. She felt the impact, the burning, falling. Blood on pavement. Her daughter's name on her lips as everything faded. Susan was screaming when the vision released her, collapsed on her lawn, gasping, crying. She'd felt it, felt dying, felt what her phone call could have caused. The pumpkins weren't done. The scene shifted again. Prison. She experienced years of it, compressed into minutes, but feeling like decades. The injustice of being convicted for a crime she didn't commit. The system is grinding her down, stealing years, destroying her life, all because someone made an assumption, made a call. When the visions finally stopped, Susan was broken, sobbing on the ground. She'd experienced multiple timelines, multiple outcomes of her actions, death, imprisonment, trauma. All of it is possible. All of it is real in other realities where the situation went slightly differently. The largest jack-o'-lantern descended until it hovered at her eye level. "Do you understand now?" Susan could barely speak through her tears. "Yes, God, yes. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." "Sorry is not enough," the pumpkin said. "But it is a start. You will live with what you felt tonight. You will remember. And you will never make that call again. On Marcus. Or anyone." The pumpkin turned to face the crowd of neighbors watching. "Let this be a lesson to all who witness. Your fear is not a justification. Your discomfort is not evidence. Your phone calls have consequences. Choose carefully." The jack-o'-lantern's flames dimmed. One by one, they floated back to their original places, settling onto porches and steps, like they'd never moved, like it had all been a mass hallucination. But Susan knew better. She could still feel it. The handcuffs, the bullet, the prison walls. The terror that Marcus lived with every day was just existing in his own neighborhood. Marcus finished his Halloween display the next day. Susan came to his door, apologized, genuinely, with tears and shame and understanding that came from experiencing rather than imagining. She spent the next year volunteering with organizations fighting false police calls, teaching implicit bias workshops, trying to undo the harm she'd caused. The jack-o'-lanterns never spoke again. But every Halloween in Maple Grove, people carved their pumpkins a little more carefully, wondering if they're creating decorations or witnesses. And before anyone reaches for their phone to call the police on a stranger, they remember the trial. Remember that justice comes in many forms. Some of them are supernatural. All of them deserve it. Subscribe if you believe decorating your own house shouldn't come with a death sentence.